Good evening, everybody. Today we have Geetha Murali, CEO, Room to Read, on the Win Voices podcast. And we're very excited because she's in the United States and we are here in India. And we'd love to get her inspirational journey on our platform.
Well, my journey was definitely not a straight line. My academic background was in statistics and South Asian politics, and I spent years in the corporate sector. But while doing my dissertation, I spent some time with communities across India and realized education is truly where possibility begins. And so education truly is power, and that became my calling. I eventually found my way to Room to Read, that had been founded by three incredible founders, and spent quite a lot of time with them, helping to grow the organization, and ultimately became the first non-founder CEO. And now the mission is clear: ensuring every child, regardless of gender and geography, has the right to education and the dignity of opportunity.
Impact are you able to sort of create being the CEO of Room to Read? Like, if you can throw some light on that, because as you know, Women Inspiring Network is also about creating impact globally. So I wanted you to sort of throw some light on that.
Yeah, so Room to Read is singularly focused on nurturing foundational learning, and that is literacy for younger children and life skills education for adolescents, particularly girls. In our 25 years to date, we've benefited about 52 million children across 29 countries through our programs. And we look to ensure that children can become fluent in their language of instruction and understand what they read, that they develop a habit of reading. So, not just the skills themselves, but a love of reading, because that is what ultimately helps children become lifelong learners. Yeah, well, I guess my message would be, don't wait for permission. Change doesn't require a perfect plan or a big title. It begins with using your voice, your passion, your creativity right where you are, and remembering that change is just never a solo act. It is stemming from building communities of support, lifting others as you rise, and never underestimating the ripple effect of your courage. And as I always say, you don't have to set out to change the whole world. You can start by changing your own world.
Good evening, everybody. Today we have Geetha Murali, CEO, Room to Read, on the Win Voices podcast. And we're very excited because she's in the United States and we are here in India. And we'd love to get her inspirational journey on our platform. So, as you all know, Geetha was also our speaker at the Win Lounge in New York during Climate Week and UNGA in September. And so, Geetha, in your own words, tell us about your journey. How did you kickstart Room to Read, educating children all over the world? I would really like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, my journey was definitely not a straight line. My academic background was in statistics and South Asian politics, and I spent years in the corporate sector. But while doing my dissertation, I spent some time with communities across India and realized education is truly where possibility begins. And I think that time helped me realize that it was my parents' education and mine that gave me possibility and choice. My mother was told to get married at 13, like my grandmother's at 2 and 14. And she said no and pursued an education instead. And she pushed education for me above all else. And so education truly is power, and that became my calling. I eventually found my way to Room to Read, that had been founded by three incredible founders, and spent quite a lot of time with them, helping to grow the organization, and ultimately became the first non-founder CEO. And now the mission is clear: ensuring every child, regardless of gender and geography, has the right to education and the dignity of opportunity.
It's amazing because, and I can see like your personal background sort of shape the way you look at leadership and problem solving. So tell us about your journey back here in India and how was the shift to the United States?
Well, I grew up moving very frequently across the US and then to India and back, just always navigating what it meant to belong. And I was the only child of older parents. So I had to grow up quickly, and I had to lead my own life earlier, perhaps, than most. And those experiences, they shaped my resilience and my conviction that leadership isn't about necessarily having all the answers, but it's about creating those conditions for others to thrive. So I do lead with a very clear sense of the data. And of course, my background as a statistician ensures that my mind works that way. But I'm always balancing that with empathy, and of course, balancing the rigor of analysis with the compassion and knowledge that I think comes from learning from others and from my own lived experiences.
Yeah. And see, so Room to Read is a global organization. And of course, the purpose of it is to improve literacy and gender equality in education. And you're overseeing these programs in many countries, and especially a lot with girls in the secondary school. And, you know, so I wanted to ask you, like, what sort of impact are you able to sort of create being the CEO of Room to Read? Like, if you can throw some light on that, because as you know, Women Inspiring Network is also about creating impact globally. So I wanted you to sort of throw some light on that.
Yeah, so Room to Read is singularly focused on nurturing foundational learning, and that is literacy for younger children and life skills education for adolescents, particularly girls. In our 25 years to date, we've benefited about 52 million children across 29 countries through our programs. And we look to ensure that children can become fluent in their language of instruction and understand what they read, that they develop a habit of reading. So, not just the skills themselves, but a love of reading, because that is what ultimately helps children become lifelong learners. And then for adolescents, particularly girls, it's ensuring they have the skills they need to navigate the challenges they may be facing, be it pressures for early marriage or dropping out of school to support families dealing with water or food scarcity, caregiving at home, poverty. I mean, the challenges these adolescents and young women in particular are facing are immense. So, in order to even consider developing academic skills, they need to be able to navigate those challenges effectively and stay in school. And that's ultimately what we're supporting them to do.
Wow. And, I've also seen that Room to Read has won many awards, like the Webby Awards and the Global EdTech Prize. So, how do you feel when you're receiving such awards at a global stage, like when you get these recognition?
Well, we're fortunate to receive recognition for our work from a number of different channels. But when Room to Read wins, let's say a Webby Award or is nominated for a Global EdTech Prize, it isn't just recognition of a program. It's validation that our mission focused on foundational learning and literacy, gender equality, that mission matters on a global stage. And it tells children in a classroom in Nepal or Laos that their stories are being seen and celebrated. And for our staff, our partners, our supporters, that's the fuel to keep us working hard and achieving our goals despite the setbacks we might face.
Yeah. And education is changing fast with technology. In your view, what role can digital tools play in reaching more children? If you can throw some light, elaborate on that, that would be great.
It's important to remember technology is just, it's not a silver bullet that solves all these problems, but it can be a powerful amplifier in our efforts. So at Room to Read, we use digital platforms like Literacy Cloud, which is our digital library that provides access to thousands of storybooks in local languages. In places where books are scarce, a phone or a tablet can suddenly become a library, and digital tools, they can also help us train and coach teachers at scale. We know not having enough teachers is one of the greatest challenges to education globally. So these types of tools, they allow children to learn even in times of crisis, whether that's a pandemic, conflict, or displacement. So we really look at technology as that enabling instrument that can help us benefit more children more quickly.
And what are some of the biggest challenges you face when you are trying to expand your programs, across different countries and different cultures? So, do you face some sort of challenges because each country is different, and you're trying to expand? And it was amazing that you mentioned that 52 million children, you've been able to create that impact. So, I would like to know about your challenges which you're facing.
Yeah, I think you sort of touched on it just now, right? The biggest challenge is that education is never a one size fits all. Every context is different, the languages, the government systems, the cultural norms. So scaling globally in the way that we look at growing our programs requires deep local expertise, a commitment to local leadership, adaptation, and truly trusted partnerships with governments, with other implementation partners, with researchers. So we invest in building local ecosystems, publishing ecosystems, training and coaching local educators, working hand in hand with ministries of education so that our programs are truly locally developed, adapted, and embedded for the longer term.
And what has been one of your happiest or joyful moments when you've been working with children and communities?
Well, it's hard to choose one. I've been at Room to Read now about 17 years and CEO for almost 8. So I've had the great fortune to see our work in many places and contexts. I was actually just in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, in fact, and each experience fills me with such pride. Just watching a child sound out their first words or seeing their faces light up with joy when reading a new book or hearing the laughter that comes from a classroom that's alive with learning. Those moments just remind me why we do this work, and each smile, it's just a testament to the possibility and the opportunities.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing feeling, because my other business had been for 2 decades, and it is still like my communication business, which is like my daytime job, and like the Women Inspiring Network. Of course, we've created it into this like a paid forward movement. But yeah, I mean, like in terms of a personal satisfaction, when someone says, "Oh, it's really great," so I know like how you feel when there's like so much of gratitude for the work which you do. So that's amazing. And tell me some of the daily habits and practices that help you balance such a demanding role. You have to travel so much, different cultures, it's children you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, balance is really about just being intentional. I carve out time for things that I cherish, time with my family and my community, and time to stay grounded through reading and exploration. I love the arts, music, and dance. Little pleasures. I take moments for reflection, even if those are brief, just to connect with my own purpose and reflect on things bigger than me alone. In the end, I think I have to recognize that no matter how much I lead or how big Retreat is, in the end, I'm human, right? With all of the awe and all of the flaws of what that entails, and that recognition, I think, is what allows me to show up for my team and to continue to have ambition, but also to temper that with pragmatism.
Yeah. And tell me about any story of a child or a girl or a moment, whose journey has deeply touched you, and anything which comes to your mind and reminded you that the kind of work which you do, it really matters. Like, can you recall any
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many. But one maybe that I'll share is of a young girl named Dumini. She's from Sri Lanka, and she was featured in Room to Read's Webby Award-winning film that you mentioned, She Creates Change. And Dumini, she refused to leave home to work as a servant when her family was struggling with food scarcity. And instead, she turned what she learned in school around climate and irrigation and learned to grow a thriving garden that grew everything from eggplants to lemons. And her harvest not only fed her own family, but even won a district prize. So today she dreams of building an agricultural hub to provide food and water and jobs for her entire community. And I share a story like that because it reminds us that when girls are given the chance to solve their own problems, to dream, they don't just change their own lives, they reimagine the future for everyone around them. And stories like that remind me why I do what I do. You know, they take me back to my own family story, and you get that reinforcement of the idea that every one of these decisions have a ripple effect far beyond what we can even imagine right now.
Wow. Wow. I really love that story. And we've come to the end of our session. And as you know, Women Inspiring Network is an inspirational storytelling platform. So, in your words, I would like you to give like an inspiring or a winning message for women out there. If you could end with that, that would be really amazing.
Yeah, well, I guess my message would be don't wait for permission. You know, change doesn't require a perfect plan or a big title. It begins with using your voice, your passion, your creativity right where you are, and remembering that change is just never a solo act. It is stemming from building communities of support, lifting others as you rise, and never underestimating the ripple effect of your courage. And as I always say, you don't have to set out to change the whole world. You can start by changing your own world.
Yeah, on that note, thank you so much for joining us on the Win Voices podcast. Of course, the Win Voices podcast is capturing voices from the United States, Davos, Cannes, India. And we're really glad, Geeta, that you could join us today. So thank you so much for joining us and taking out the time. We'll of course be shooting some more episodes in India, and then we're off to Davos in Jan during the World Economic Forum week. But from all of us at the Women Inspiring Network, thank you today for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.